World War II, a global conflict that lasted from 1939 to 1945, the deadliest conflict in human history. A monumental event that forever reshaped the world, its causes rooted deeply in the economic instability and nationalistic tensions left behind by the Great War. The major players in this global theater were the Axis powers, namely Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the Allies, primarily the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom. But the conflict's ripple effects reached far beyond these nations, touching every corner of the globe. Our story today brings us to the small but significant country of Croatia. At the onset of the war, Croatia was part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, but as the Axis powers advanced, political landscapes shifted. In 1941, the independent state of Croatia, or NDH, was established. The NDH was anything but independent. It was a puppet state under the control of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. At the helm of this new state was the Ustasha regime, a far-right organization committed to the ethno-nationalist cause. They sought a racially pure Croatia and, much like their Axis allies, embarked on a campaign of repression and violence against Serbs, Jews, and Roma living within their borders. While the world was entangled in a war against fascism, the people of Croatia were fighting their own battles. The Ustasha regime's brutal reign was met with resistance from various factions, including the royalist Chetniks and the communist partisans. The country was torn apart by internal conflict, even as the larger war raged on. As World War II drew to a close in 1945, the Axis powers crumbled. The independent state of Croatia was no exception. With the partisans advancing and the Axis retreating, the Ustasha regime began to collapse. The people of Croatia, many of whom had suffered under the Ustasha, now faced a new uncertainty. As the war came to an end, Croatia found itself in a precarious position, leading to the tragic events at Bleiburg. In our next segment, we'll delve into the fall of the independent state of Croatia and the harrowing events that unfolded at Bleiburg. In 1945, as the Allies closed in, the NDH found itself on the losing side. This was the independent state of Croatia, a puppet state established by Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy during World War II. The tide of the war was rapidly changing, and the NDH's days were numbered. The independent state of Croatia crumbled under the weight of the advancing Allies. The government, military, and many civilians initiated a mass retreat towards Austria, hoping to surrender to the British forces stationed there. They believed they would be treated more leniently by the British than by the Yugoslav partisans, who were rapidly gaining control of the territory. This desperate exodus, however, was met with a harsh reality. The British, unwilling to accept the refugees, refused to open their lines. They were not ready to bear the burden of thousands of displaced persons, nor did they wish to interfere with the partisans' efforts. Caught between a rock and a hard place, the retreating Croatians were left with no choice but to turn back. But the Yugoslav partisans were closing in. The British refusal to accept the refugees effectively left them in the hands of the partisans, who were eager to settle old scores. This was a turning point in the history of the independent state of Croatia. The partisans swiftly rounded up the Croatian soldiers and civilians. The lucky ones were imprisoned, while others were not so fortunate. It was a chaotic time, marked by widespread reprisals and lawlessness. The fall of the independent state of Croatia was a brutal end to a tumultuous chapter in the country's history. The mass retreat, the British refusal, and the subsequent capture by the Yugoslav partisans marked the beginning of a period of immense suffering for the Croatian people. Thousands of Croatian soldiers and civilians found themselves at the mercy of the partisans, leading to the infamous Bleiburg Massacre. This event, steeped in controversy and tragedy, would leave a lasting scar on the Croatian psyche, forever shaping the narrative of the nation's past. Bleiburg, a small town in Austria, became the stage for one of the most horrifying events in Croatian history. In May of 1945, the end of World War II saw the independent state of Croatia collapse, forcing thousands of soldiers, civilians, and political leaders to flee. Their destination? Bleiburg. The journey to Bleiburg was marked by forced marches, often referred to as death marches. Exhausted, malnourished, and desperate, the Croatian refugees hoped to find asylum in the British-controlled zone of Austria. But instead of refuge, what awaited them was an unthinkable fate. As the Croatian masses reached Bleiburg, they were met not by the British, but by the Yugoslav partisans. The British had made a fateful decision. They handed over the refugees to the partisans, who were known for their vengeance against those they considered enemies. What followed was a stark display of brutality. The partisans separated the men from the women and children, forcing the men to march back to Yugoslavia. Along the way, thousands were executed without trial, their bodies left to be swallowed by the earth. These mass executions were not limited to soldiers. Civilians, including women and children, were also caught in the crossfire. The Bleiburg massacre became a grim testament to the horrors of war. The exact number of victims remains a point of contention, with estimates ranging from tens of thousands to as high as 200,000. This uncertainty has fueled an ongoing controversy, with some arguing that the events at Bleiburg were an act of retribution, a necessary response to the atrocities committed by the Ustazi regime during the war. Others, however, insist that the massacre was a war crime, a gross violation of human rights that saw innocent civilians targeted alongside military personnel. This debate continues to divide opinion, adding another layer of complexity to the already intricate tapestry of World War II history. The Bleiburg tragedy remains a dark chapter in Croatia's history, a painful memory of the horrors of war. A reminder that in times of conflict, humanity can sometimes lose sight of its values, its empathy, its compassion. The memory of Bleiburg remains fraught with controversy and political manipulation. In the aftermath of World War II, the narrative surrounding the Bleiburg massacre was a subject of intense manipulation within the newly formed Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. The new regime, eager to promote unity and suppress any dissenting voices, downplayed the events at Bleiburg, casting them as a necessary act of justice against fascist collaborators. This narrative, however, stood in stark contrast to the reality of the grim events that unfolded on that fateful day in May 1945. As Yugoslavia disintegrated in the early 90s, the narrative around Bleiburg began to shift once again. Now, an independent Croatia started to grapple with its own history, and the massacre at Bleiburg emerged from the shadows of the past. It was recast not as an act of justice, but as a crime against humanity, a brutal act of retribution that claimed the lives of countless innocent people. Every year on the anniversary of the massacre, crowds gather in Bleiburg to commemorate the victims. These annual commemorations, however, have become a hotbed of controversy. They have been criticized for being a platform for far-right sentiments, a place where extremist ideologies are glorified under the guise of remembrance. This has led to heated debates about the nature of these commemorations, their purpose, and their impact on society. Yet, amid all the controversy and political manipulation, one thing remains clear: the victims of Bleiburg must not be forgotten. Their stories, their sacrifices, their suffering are all a testament to the horrors of war. They serve as a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink in times of conflict and the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred and violence. Despite the controversy, the victims of Bleiburg deserve recognition and remembrance, a testament to the horrors of war. The events at Bleiburg and the subsequent death marches are a stark reminder of the brutality of war. The World War II era was a time of international conflict and personal suffering. A period in history when the human capacity for cruelty was laid bare for all to see. The story of the independent state of Croatia, its fall, and the massacre at Bleiburg is a tale that echoes the larger narrative of the war itself, a narrative of power, persecution, and pain. The fall of the independent state of Croatia marked a pivotal moment in the country's history. It signaled the end of a regime, but also the beginning of a new era of turmoil and tragedy for many Croatian people. The massacre at Bleiburg was a horrifying climax to this tumultuous period, a brutal demonstration of the human cost of war. Thousands of lives were mercilessly extinguished, their stories forever etched into the annals of history. Yet the memory of Bleiburg is not just a dark stain on the past, but a warning for the future. It is a testament to the depths to which humanity can sink when driven by hatred and fear, a chilling reminder of the dangers of extremism and intolerance. Remembering the victims of Bleiburg is not just about honoring the dead, but about learning from the past to ensure that such atrocities never happen again. The controversy surrounding the commemoration of Bleiburg is a reflection of the ongoing struggle to reconcile with the past. It is a testament to the power of history, and the importance of confronting it with honesty and courage. In the end, the story of Bleiburg is a story of humanity. It is a story of our capacity for cruelty, but also our capacity for compassion, for remembrance, and for change. In remembering the victims of Bleiburg, we honor their memory and remind ourselves of the price of war and the value of peace.